welcome to this week's Trinity Love Tuesday. I know it has been a while since we have sat down and chatted like this, but we are back at it, and I appreciate you guys sticking with me throughout me finding a new, what's the word for this? A new ride, a new wave in this season. That's probably not the word we're looking for, but just thank you for being with me throughout the transition of figuring out how to get back on track and get on a new track with this new season and adjustments and its life. But anywho, we are back with today's video. We're back with my traditional Trinity Love Tuesday videos. Okay, so the rambles and rants, I'm cutting now. So today we are talking about fighting our flesh, or for me, because I can only speak for myself, fighting my flesh. And I'm not talking about the traditional sins that people are always talking about, and like the overt sins that like is pretty much black and white for everybody to do this or not do this. Like the Bible is very clear about certain things. I'm not talking about those type of things. I'm talking about the more subtle things, the gray area things, fighting our flesh in that way. And the biggest example of that, I would say, is disobedience. So disobedience is sin, and we are constantly fighting our flesh in regards to being obedient. Like, you can be a walking, active, mature Christian living the lifestyle of being Christ-like, not some of these Christian labels that the world has created and rules and stuff. I'm talking about like biblically, being like Christ. You can be actively mature, living this life, surrendered to Christ, and still battle with temptation and wanting to fight your flesh, because we are still living in this world. We are just called not to be of the world just because we're in it. So that's why we have to constantly repent, constantly surrender, spend time with Christ daily, because it is a daily walk with Him, a moment by moment walk with Him, to surrender your flesh to Him. And so that is a moment by moment thing. So there's a fight in that. And again, I want to focus more on disobedience and the subtle things, not the black and white sins that are clearly laid out in the Bible. There's really like no debate for that. But when it comes to disobedience, the reason why that's a great area is because God has a separate calling for each and every one of us. So He may be calling you specifically to do this thing, whether it be, I want you to eat this today, I want you to read this, I want you to go to this event, I want you to call this person, I want you to do that. These are subtle, everyday, in the moment things that happen with each person in their personal devotional time, in their personal time with God. Those things vary by person because we each have our own walk. So something that may be disobedient for me to do may not be disobedient for you to do, because if God specifically gave me instruction to do something and then I don't do it, I'm disobedient. But I have disobeyed Him in that area. Whereas if you didn't do that same thing, but God didn't call you to do that thing, then you're not being disobedient because He didn't call you to do it, if that makes sense. So I'm talking about something specific things like that. So like, for instance, if say I'm fasting and I'm supposed to be fasting from meat, and I choose to eat meat, and a friend who I'm with also chose to eat meat at the time, but they are not fasting. So therefore, I'm being disobedient by eating meat, and they are not being disobedient by eating meat because they are not fasting for meat, and God hasn't instructed them not to eat meat for that time or forever or for whatever the situation is. So that's just one example. And so I just wanted to talk about that because I am really going through a desire or a fight with my flesh to want to be disobedient in regards to not wanting to leave my comfort zone. I believe that God definitely is stripping me and pulling me and stretching me out of my comfort zone in like almost every way imaginable. And I am tired and growing weary in well-doing. And Galatians 6:9 encourages us not to grow weary in well-doing. And I am constantly fighting my flesh in wanting to remain obedient when it would be more comfortable for me to be disobedient in the certain areas that God is trying to push me and grow me and take me out of my comfort zone. And it has been a struggle. I mean, every day, maybe every couple hours, maybe every few minutes, struggle in certain areas, because I'm like, God, you are stripping me in every single area possible. And here I am thinking that this season was gonna kind of get easier, because here it goes. Towards the end of 2018, my heavy, deep depressive symptoms are lifting. So I'm thinking, okay, so I dealt with that depressive episode for 2 years, and on and off for 15 years. But this last one was like 2 years pretty much. And I'm like, dang, we get a break now, because it's been 2 years. So now, like, bam, everything should be easy. Okay, so that's ignorant, obviously, because nowhere in the Bible does it say things are supposed to be easy, light and fluffy, wrapped in a pretty bowl, all the cliche, happy-go-lucky things that people say. Like, nowhere in the Bible does it say that, like at all. And when the Bible does talk about being blessed and being filled with peace, and God being your healer and things like that, it's not always talking about material things. I think most of the time it's not talking about material things. It's being blessed by him in his presence. And the Bible talks a lot about trials and tribulations and suffering and rejoicing through the suffering. So being blessed to rejoice through the suffering is sometimes the type of blessings that God is calling us to embrace. So with all that being said, I still be like, Lord, are you going to make it easier, or is every single thing going to stretch and grow me? And yes, every single thing is supposed to stretch and grow me. And the fight is that, Lord, like, okay, so you can stretch and grow me in every single area except for this one, because I want to stay in my comfort zone in this area, because you're already stretching me in every single other area. So in this area, I just kind of want to, be chilling. Because every other area, I'm already dealing with so much in every other area. So in this area, like, I just want to, like, chill. Like, can I get a break? If you're not going to give me a break, then my flesh going to give me a break. And that's where the problem lies. And that's where I have to constantly fight my flesh and say, okay, like, all right, this is going to be hard. And it's okay that it's hard. Like, it's not a negative thing for things to be hard. And God is really helping me change my perspective, because things not going my way often or all the time, unless my way is exactly lined up with Christ's way, which doesn't happen a lot. So things not going my way is not always a bad thing. Things being hard is not a bad thing, because God is stretching and growing me. And it's okay for me to be frustrated, for me to be tired, for me to wonder when I'm going to get a break. But I have to surrender all those feelings to Christ, not ignore them, and not try to be like, oh, well, at least this good thing is happening, or at least this good thing. No, you have to actually deal with the deep, dark, rough stuff, as well as embracing and being grateful for all the wonderful things going on. You have to always constantly be grateful and give thanks, but you cannot neglect the frustrations. You can't neglect the rough stuff, or then you're never going to be able to deal with that. And so, or even overcome it. So that's just like what I'm going through. And I just want to encourage you all, pay attention to those moments. Pay attention to the subtle things that God is calling you to and you are resistant from. And again, something as small as him placing on your spirit to eat this certain way, or change a subtle something in your daily life, not necessarily a big thing. I think sometimes we can get focused on the big things and neglect the small things, and the small things are what lead up to the big things, and they are building blocks to help you get to the big things. So I just want to encourage us in that way, like, keep fighting your flesh, keep surrendering it to Christ every single moment. If you're a morning diva, or whenever you pray with God throughout the day, if that's not enough, I'm just going to use morning devo as an example, because it's what I'm familiar with and my style. But that, is not always going to be enough. It's great to have dedicated time to Christ, but throughout the day, we need him throughout the day. In the moment that you are getting frustrated, in the moments that you are happy and that things are going great, acknowledge him throughout the whole time. It'll help your flesh surrender to Christ at all times. It will help as you're fighting your flesh to be surrendered to him more, communicate with him more, love on him more. And so that is what I'm encouraging myself with and encouraging you all with. Like, just keep up the good fight. Don't get weary in well-doing. And if you do, surrender that to Christ and let him give you rest. So, yeah, that's all that I want to talk about today in this video. So thank you all so much for watching, and remember to love always. Bye. I am yours and you are mine.